Welcome in. Happy holidays from the Maize and Blue Review. That right there on the screen and also in your ears on the podcast is Lucas Reimink, and I'm Dennis Fithian. Right now, this is Sharpening the Edge Bowl Season Part 2. We're ready to pick the second half of the bowl season. Lucas, it's great to see you. We've picked 18 games already. There's 3 or 4 more today that you could go back in Part 1 at the tail end to look at, but how are things been going for you for this bowl season?
Well, we're having fun. We may not be winning as many as we're losing. 7, 10, and 1 so far through our I think we're through 18 games with 4 or 5 still left to go, like you said. But 2 and 1 in the best bets thus far. 2 still left to go that I felt pretty good about. So hopefully, at least with the best bets, hopefully those ones will be pulling through. Picking every game in bowls is hard, especially when you're doing it like a week or 2 out. Obviously disappointed to be below 500, but really not that surprising when you consider all the factors.
Yeah, I have bad news and then a little bit of mid news. My bad news is that all of my locks we pick, and we will do that in the second half of these bowl picks too. The 5 that we're the most confident in, and the 5 that I was the most confident in Part 1, unfortunately, I went 1, 3, and 1. So that's a big downer. Through the 18 games, I am an even 8, 8, and 2, which is not great either. It's actually losing when you factor in the juice, but that's just where it's at. In a lot of these games, we pick them now, and then the lines change. I went with the lines. There's a few that ended up, the Memphis game for sure, that line was pretty low. By the time it kicked off, it was 5. It hit 5 right on the button, which had us as a tie. So that's the way that goes. But we have a bunch of games that start tomorrow. We will pick the Michigan game that's coming up New Year's Day. So that's pretty exciting. And so with that, we can take a look at these games, and we will start with the Fenway Bowl, which takes place tomorrow in Boston. 11 a.m. kick between UConn and North Carolina. Right now, we've got Bill Belichick, although he will not be coaching this game. He will be back in his old stomping grounds. I'm sure he'll be taking a look with those binoculars down there to see what he sees with any of his players. I don't know what kind of factor he'll have, but the Tar Heels are laying 2.5 points against the Huskies. What do you see? How do you like this game? What do you see in this one?
I'm going to go with North Carolina here, only at 2.5. UNC does have 3 guys who declared for the draft already, not going to play. 2 more starters in the portal. UConn on the other side has got at least 3 starters by my count who are either in the portal or going to the draft as well. Kind of viewing this mostly straight up, kind of just based on the strength of the teams. But the big loss, the most notable loss in this game is star running back Amarian Hampton from North Carolina. He's been really good, really the last 2 seasons. He's going to the NFL, not going to be playing in this one. But just based on my numbers, even with all the opt-outs and stuff, I have this at a 6-point spread. So I'll take UNC to cover that 2.5 there.
Yeah, I found this one to be a difficult one to handicap. You look for the star player, the star running back from North Carolina. That's the thing you really like. But I don't know, UConn, you look up and down that team. And I like Carolina, the program, even though, Mac Brown is gone. I still like, and Lindsey, their offensive coordinator headed to Michigan. I still like the talent overall with the Tar Heels, and that is going to have me picking North Carolina in this game. So I agree with you. At noon tomorrow, you have Boston College, and you'll go from Fenway to Yankee Stadium. Nebraska out of the Big Ten is favored by 4, and I'll pick this one. Castellanos, the quarterback from Boston College, went to Florida State. You do have Dylan Raiola. He is the QB from Nebraska, and Nebraska beat Colorado in the non-conference, but their best game of the year was at Ohio State, where they only lost by 4 points. I watched a lot of that game. I like what Nebraska brought to the table there, and I think that they are going to be able to beat BC. I don't like that 4 crooked number right there necessarily, but I have to pick this game, and I am going to pick Nebraska to cover the 4 points in the Pinstripe Bowl.
There's a lot of interesting coaching stuff in this one as well. Dana Holgorsen took over as OC partway through Nebraska's season. And the offense in general, really the team as a whole, kind of started playing better down the stretch. Dylan Raiola looked a little bit better playing in the new offense. But Tony White, their really good DC, left for the same position at Florida State. So a ton of defensive players and most like good ones as well jumped in the portal. A lot of the key depth guys all entered the portal in the front seven as well. I counted 6 starters on Nebraska's front seven alone entered the portal, and some key depth guys there as well. One of them signed with Missouri, another one LSU, another one Ole Miss, a couple others to Florida State. So not just losing guys, but they're losing guys that other high-profile teams wanted. BC, obviously, they aren't going to be missing a ton of their best players. The quarterback you mentioned there, Castellanos, there had gotten benched partway through the year. My numbers have this at Nebraska 2.5. So with the spread there at +4, not huge margin here, but I'll just side with the BC just because my numbers have it at 2.5. I'll get a 1.5 value there, especially with all the opt-outs and the portal entries for the Huskers. Makes me feel a little bit better about it, but not great.
And I know that you don't necessarily pick against me just to pick against me. So that's the one thing I wanted to tell everyone who's saying that you're just being a contrarian to my picks. I don't think so. Let's go and move on here. We have the New Mexico Bowl, which features the Ragin' Cajuns from Louisiana against the Horned Frogs. Nice mascot in this game, TCU. On the other side, and you do have the Horned Frogs. It is a big number, 11.5.
Yeah, I don't know. There's a ton about this game that I'm not really sure on either. Louisiana has 3 starters missing the game so far. TCU has 3 guys not going to play here either. Kind of viewing it, though, straight up, there's kind of similar opt-out and injury numbers. A lot of guys injured on both sides as well. My numbers have us at 8, so with that at +11.5 there, I'll side with Louisiana.
Yeah, I didn't watch either of these teams play all year long. You're looking at the schedule. You like this, you don't like that. I like, well, am I going to pick Louisiana because Lamar Morgan, is Michigan's DB coach there? That's not a really smart way to do things, but sometimes when you get to these bowl games, that's the way it is. And because it's 11.5, I know all of the college football favorites in the playoffs, they all smashed everyone. But normally when you're handicapping, you do feel like you got to mix in some of the dogs, and that's what I'm going to do here. And I'm going to take the Ragin' Cajuns plus the 11.5, thinking that they might be able to hang on and make it an interesting game. This is an interesting game, no matter how you cut it. And that is the Tart Bowl. Who's going to be eating Pop-Tarts tomorrow? Is it going to be Iowa State or Miami? 3.5. On this side, you have I had 10 guys hitting the portal on each side, but Cam Ward is in, and a couple of his key weapons are as well. Miami played a lot of close games this year. Iowa State was pretty good, but because Cam Ward and his offensive weapons, what I was looking at comparing the depth charts, it made me want to take the U and lay the 3.5. What about you?
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Cam Ward being the big reason why, like you mentioned, possible first-round draft pick at quarterback, but he said he's going to play in this bowl game, which is kind of encouraging to see. My power rating has this Miami -7 with Cam Ward factored in there. To me, the betting line, just with my power ratings comparing the two, the betting line to me is factoring in that Cam's not going to be playing. That's when I would drop it to 3.5. But I don't really obviously, if he says he's going to play, you kind of have to just take him at his word, even though it is a little bit of a surprise. So I'll ride the Hurricanes here at 3.5 as long as Cam Ward is playing.
Yeah, if he pulls the Jabril Peppers tomorrow and he's in warmups and then pulls a hammy or something to sit out, I would take the bet off the board myself. But I'm with you. He says he's playing, and right now I'm going to take him at his word. That gets us to the Snoop Dogg Arizona Bowl, and you can make some jokes or do whatever you want here, but you've got the Red Hawks of Miami taking up the Rams of Colorado State in the Arizona Bowl tomorrow, 4:30.
Yeah, Miami, Ohio. By my count, missing 3 starters for this one. Colorado State going to be missing 4. Colorado State also fired their DC prior to this game, so someone else who hasn't been calling the plays for the defense all year. Kind of expecting a little bit of a drop-off just due to lack of experience. Not that their defense was any good. So the DC wasn't very good, but not that it doesn't really matter. I expecting a drop-off a little bit at least, just with experience, like I said. My power ratings have this at -4. So I'll take Miami of Ohio, the other Miami school. I'll take them as well to cover that 2.5.
Yeah, we had one of the other pushes, Ohio, getting a push. And then I watched the Toledo Rockets look pretty good in the old Motor City Bowl, whatever that thing was called, yesterday, going with 6 overtimes. And I'm just I'm going with the Red Hawks in this one. It's a low number. It's a tough one looking through again, trying to figure out what side to favor in this one. So I'm going to go back and just ride this trend with the MAC and go with Miami of Ohio and lay the 2.5. That gets us to the Military Bowl. And this isn't a half bad matchup, especially if you're from North Carolina. That's where both of these universities are. So you got state bragging rights. East Carolina's got the old Michigan State quarterback, Caitlin Hauser. It's actually performed pretty decently, especially late in the year for the Pirates. But on the other side, CJ Bailey, he has looked pretty good for the Wolfpack. And that's why in this one, I am going to take NC State. They were a team that was looked at pretty favorably to start the season and then dip down a little bit. But I like where they're at right here, and I like them winning this game in state in the Military Bowl. So I'll take the Wolfpack, and I'll lay the 6 points.
With you on this one as well. A few coaching things that are kind of interesting. NC State's DC, Tony Gibson, who I think is one of the better defensive coordinators in the country. They run a really good 3-3-5 system that's kind of been populated more in the Big 12, but they run it there at NC State, and they've done really well there doing that. He is off to Marshall. ECU, they fired their coach midseason and then appointed an interim guy, and then they just now removed the interim tag. So the head coach there is going to be the new full-time guy moving forward as well. Counted out 5 starters for ECU, and 2 of them are like day 2 NFL draft guys, so important players there. Only 2 for NC State, but it is their best skill guy, Kevin Concepcion's in the portal. Not going to be playing in this one. My power ratings have this at NC State -7, so right there with the spread. But with the guys missing for ECU, that I just don't think they're going to have the depth to replace the missing starters, as well as NC State will be able to on the other side. And it's an in-state matchup, like you said, so I do think both teams will care and want to win this one. So I'll take the Wolfpack, kind of assuming that.
The game in Annapolis, Maryland, and we keep it going. This is a pretty interesting game in the Alamo Dome, the Alamo Bowl, which features BYU and Colorado. It's just a Big 12 clash. I get these confused if they're in there or not, but they're facing off. And Colorado, which will bring possibly, they're going to have the Heisman Trophy winner and maybe the #1 pick in the draft, and they are going to play. So that's what is making this one interesting to me. I'm going to let you lead off to see. I've gone with Colorado a few times, and they've disappointed me this year. What about you when it comes down to the Alamo Bowl? Buffaloes favored by 4.
Yeah, I'm going to side with the Buffaloes here, pretty much just because Hunter and Shador are playing. I don't think there's anybody on BYU, who can keep up with Travis specifically, and Shador is obviously probably the favorite to go the #1 pick. So he'll be able to get him the football. I think they're going to feature both of those guys a lot in this game, just to kind of have them go out in college on a high note. So I expect them to care. BYU on the other side, their O-line's kind of a hodgepodge. They have 2 or 3 guys out with injury and another 1 or 2 in the portal. So they're going to be missing like multiple starters on the O-line. Colorado's D-line is actually kind of sneaky good. One of the bigger surprises maybe in the Big 12 was how good Colorado's D-line played all year after being like basically horrendous the year before. So just kind of the reasons there with BYU's O-line being shuffled, kind of stitched together. Shador and Travis playing. I'll side Colorado here with the -4.
Yeah, and it is an oddity. I thought so, but both BYU and Colorado are technically in the Big 12, and they're playing in a bowl game, which I don't ever recall happening. But, it's a new world, and here we are getting ready for 2025. And I'm taking Colorado for all the reasons you said there, too. BYU, they had that undefeated streak, which I think had them propped up a little bit, and they played some close games. But in the end, I just think Colorado, the one thing Coach Prime has preached is about this team staying together. And, yeah, they're all going and playing in this bowl game. They really want this one, a big program game, if you will, for Colorado. So that's why I am taking the Buffs. And I think it's all of these games. I don't know, we picked 7. These are all being played tomorrow, believe it or not. and you have Army in the Independence Bowl at 9:15. If you're watching all of them, man, that is a long day of watching football. Louisiana Tech, this is in Shreveport, so they've got the home game in the Independence Bowl, but Army favored by 16.5. And for me, Army had a great season, but then they got beat by Navy, and this is the biggest spread of the season. Army's rush attack, Louisiana Tech, I don't think anybody feels like, even with the time that they have to prepare, that they're going to be able to stop it. And I can't see taking Louisiana Tech, even though they're getting all these points. And that's why I am going with Army to just run and roll in the Independence Bowl to try to make and go out with a good taste in their mouth after losing to Navy.
I'm going to hop on the other side here. Plus 16.5, just a little bit too big of a number for me. My power ratings have this at -14 with a long layoff in the bowl prep time. Just think Louisiana Tech will be able to at least get some sort of an idea of how to stop or at least slow down this triple option attack. It's also really hard to cover big numbers with spread if you're a run-heavy team, just because the game goes so fast. The clock's always moving with all the running plays. So I just think that's kind of a factor for me here as well in the second half. Maybe going faster than people would like if you're on the Army side here. So just a couple of points of value there at plus 16.5 versus plus 14 is what my power rating should have it as. So I'll side with the Louisiana Tech there.
All right. Well, hey, you're not going to win them all, so you can take a couple shots. We'll see how it goes. That gets us to Monday, and we have the Music City Bowl. This is another good matchup in Nashville, out of the Big Ten, Iowa, and SEC, Missouri Tigers. Both of these teams, they've had some interesting games this year when you take a look at it, and Missouri's actually favored by 3. How did you look at this one?
Yeah, I'm only seeing 2 starters out here for Iowa, but one of them is obviously probably the best player, star running back, Caleb Johnson, is kind of the key to the whole team, really. Missouri on the other side, also not expected to be missing a ton of guys, but their best player, best skill guy, at least for sure, Luther Burden, probably going to be a first-round pick at wide receiver there on offense. And kind of just something I was going through. My power ratings actually have these two at 22nd and 23rd in the country, so back-to-back there with 0.1 separation in terms of the power rating value there. So I'm just going to side with the Hawkeyes here at +3 just because I have it at 0.1, barely, hardly even any separation there at all. So I'll take the underdog there with the +3 points.
Well, I'm going to go on the other side in this one in Missouri, but Iowa, it's hard to get away from not just you should just take this individual year, but the past years and how they've lacked scoring. I've seen what Missouri has with their head coach and how they played in the bowl season last year. This is a really close game when I take a look at it, so I'm just going with the winner, the team that I think is going to win. And I guess you can make that argument. That's why I should pick Iowa, but no, I am going to go with Missouri. And it's not to go against you, but that is how I saw it, which now gets us to the big one, the ReliaQuest Bowl, noon this Tuesday. And I saw the videos and the pictures from down there in Tampa. There are some surprising things in some of those videos, like how about Alex Orji in the transfer portal, but he's out there working with the Michigan quarterbacks. I don't know, and they're going to play him. He's going to play in the game, so maybe he's going to end up coming back. That was some pretty interesting news today. But I have Jalen Milroe. It looks like he's going to play in this game. Alabama was the team on the outside looking in, the last one out of the college football playoff. I think they're upset about that. They lost last year, Nick Saban's last game in the Rose Bowl. All of that adds up to me, and I know they just lost one of their key offensive linemen, which is big, but you start piecing together Michigan's defense and you look at it, which I was trying to do, and I know it's a big number, but I am going to lean Alabama here, 35-17, so I am going to lay the points and take Alabama.
Yeah, I'm with you on this one. This is one of my best bets for bowl season, part 2, and riding Bama here. Just like you are, both teams are going to be missing a ton of guys. Alabama's really thin at wide receiver and on defense in particular. Keon Sabb, former Michigan player, not going to play. Deontay Lawson, their star linebacker for Bama, not going to play. they're down to 3 scholarship wide receivers at Alabama, but their top 2 ones, Ryan Williams, obviously the superstar young freshman, and Gio Bernard, their number 2 receiver on the year, are both expected to play. So not like a huge deal there, even though they are going to be thin just in terms of scholarship numbers. Michigan's defense on the other side, Grant, Graham, Stewart, Loveland, Will Johnson, Donovan Edwards, and others not expected to play. So just way too many guys out here for Michigan. I do think Michigan will try really hard and will compete in this one, but with Milroe and Ryan Williams and Gio Bernard all still playing, I just think there's too much skill talent for Michigan to be able to keep up with. I got the Crimson Tide here winning by 14, so I'll take Bama at 12.5 there.
Yeah, and if you're a Michigan fan looking to be mad at somebody, you can be mad at me. I was over here talking about lay the points in Michigan against Ohio State. I took the Buckeyes and whatever that big number was. So you can say, yeah, you didn't know what you were doing there. So, and you would be right. So if that makes you feel good, have at it. All right, let's stay on New Year's Day. I like this game. This is South Carolina and Illinois in the Citrus Bowl. A little bit up and over from Tampa in Orlando. How about South Carolina laying 9.5 points? Was this too scary for me? I am going to say at first it was, but Illinois, they beat the teams they should have beat this year, and then they lost the teams that they should have lost to, including Penn State by 14, and then they lost by 29 to Oregon. They only lost 3 games in there, but when you look at them, and South Carolina is the better team, and I just looked through it, and I think this is a double-digit win for South Carolina. Even though Illinois had a good season, I am laying the points, and I am taking the Gamecocks.
Yeah, right there with you on this one as well. This is another one of my best bets for the bowl season, part 2. Neither team actually is expected to be missing a ton of guys. Quarterbacks for both teams are returning to their schools next year, and both expected to play in this one. Lenore Sellers and South Carolina as a team played really well down the stretch. It looked like a completely different team from early on in the season. Sellers was a little bit banged up. They had a bye week, and he got healthy and kind of turned into a star there at quarterback for the Gamecocks down the stretch. So with him and everything else factored in here, my power ratings have this at 13. So I'm with you. I'll take South Carolina to cover that 9.5 there.
All right, we're rolling through NRG Stadium in Houston. That's where we have the Texas Bowl, Baylor and LSU. Baylor favored by 2. This was a tough game for me to handicap. How did you see it?
Yeah, LSU is kind of a shell of itself here. 2 wide receivers, top 2 receivers for LSU not playing. Both starting tackles not playing and going to be high NFL draft picks. Mason Taylor, another really good tight end, not going to be playing as well. Garrett Nussmeier, though, is expected to play. He's going to be back at LSU in 2025. Baylor kind of quietly had a really nice season. They won their last 6 games down the stretch. Sawyer Robertson emerged as kind of the go-to guy at quarterback, played really well in that Jake Spavital offense down there at Baylor. I just think he's going to be able to have success here against an LSU defense that struggled, again, pretty much all year. They're extremely aggressive, and Sawyer Robertson's mobility, I think, is going to be a big factor here in this one. I have the Bears winning by a field goal or more, so I'll take the Bears minus the 2.
I'm with you too, and Nussmeier is the one thing that at first made me think to go with LSU, and then LSU recruits well, so I was thinking the depth, but you started thinking about the pieces. I'm sorry that they're missing, and that's what had me with you thinking that it was going to be Baylor, so I'll take Baylor minus 2. Now we get to the college football playoff games. We saw how impressive Penn State was against SMU. That game was over quickly, and now they get another, I'd say, off-brand team. I know Boise's been around for a while, but Boise had the bye. They're sitting around. This is not being played in Happy Valley. It's in Glendale, Arizona. But if you like Penn State, you have to lay the 11 points. Now, the Boise, their one big game this year against Oregon, they kept it really close. I mean, they were in that game the whole way. So that's the reason you could say, hey, they stayed with a big dog. The other side is you could say, Penn State has to play week in and week out. And look what they did last week. But you've got one great player in Genty on the other and on the Boise side. And that's what makes me think that they can just keep it close. I know Penn State's got a good defense, and I got in particular a pretty good run defense, but I've seen a Penn State run defense before when they go up against a quality rushing attack. That's why I'm going to take Boise. I think Penn State is going to win the game, but I am going to take Boise. I think a lot of people are just going to keep pressing the gas on these favorites, but not me. I'm going to say this is going to be the stop sign on Penn State. Give me Boise plus 11.
I'm on Penn State here, laying the 11. One of my best bets as well as whole season. I was on Penn State against SMU. Kind of saw how that one went. Yeah. Not saying it's going to play out the same way, but that's part of why I'm not scared of the big number here. They're favored by 11, obviously. Ashton Jeanty on the other side, like you mentioned. But I think this is going to be closer. I have this at 14 or 15. So I'll take the Nittany Lions here. I just don't think Jeanty is going to get much running room. Penn State's front seven is really good. I still think the weakness, I said it last week, of the Penn State defense is the secondary. So this doesn't really match up well with what Boise State does on offense. They're obviously a much better running team than they are a passing team. I think Penn State's going to be able to move the ball pretty much at will against the Boise State defense. That's among the worst still in the playoff here. It's probably them and Arizona State. But I just think Penn State's going to have a lot of success on offense. I have this more of like the 27-13 type game. So I got Penn State covering that 11 there.
Boise throw a bunch of pick sixes right off the bat. I can see what you're saying. I thought that got skewed so much that SMU never had a chance in that game. I'm hoping that Boise comes up with a better game plan than what SMU had, certainly execution-wise. What gets us to New Year's Day, Texas was a team that came out and was also able to cover a big number against Clemson. Now they have Arizona State, and it's another big number. Longhorns favored by 13. This is a game that's going to be played in the Mercedes-Benz Dome in Atlanta. How do you see Texas and Arizona State in the quarterfinal in the Peach Bowl?
Yeah, this is another one of my best bets. We've got pretty much all of them in a row these last two games. My power ratings actually have this right at 13, so right there in line with the spread. I just kind of looking at it, it's kind of a matchup game for me. Arizona State had a great year, but Texas is a little bit of a different animal than anybody else they've played so far this season. I just think there's going to be too much physicality, both on offense and defense, for the Sun Devils to manage. Arizona State's defense, just was talking about a little bit the previous game, but I think their defense is among the worst in the playoffs still left. Texas should be able to roll and cruise. Probably most of the damage done on the ground with that good offensive line. I think the Longhorns are going to get right here, have another big win in the playoffs, and coast to the semifinals here.
Rico's agreeing with you. He says 2 more blowouts on deck. I think that's what he's talking about with these last 2 college football playoff games. And that gets us to a very interesting game, and it is a rematch of a game that was a 1-point affair out in Eugene earlier in the season. Ohio State, fresh off their gigantic win against Tennessee, they'll take on Oregon, who's sitting around and rested. Oregon saying, hey, we're the number 1 overall seed, and we got to play Ohio State in round 2, and we don't even get a home game. We got to play at the Rose Bowl. That's going to be a tough spot. I like Ohio State in this rematch. You know, they when you get a situation where everything is lost and everybody's dragging you around, and that's what happened after the loss to Michigan. They went in with all the expectations, and they knew they had to get that right. Their home crowd could turn on them. I think now all those Buckeye fans will flock to the Rose Bowl, and I think Ohio State is going to beat Oregon, and so I am going to lay the 2.5 points.
Yeah, I'm with you on this one. I was kind of looking at it like people might be surprised at Ohio State being the favored team at 2.5 here, despite losing last time. Obviously, they're 11-2, or Oregon 15-0 and Big Ten champs on the other side. And they beat the Buckeyes when they played at home in Autzen there early on in the season. It's just kind of a weird spot for me because my brain is kind of thinking like, oh, okay, Ohio State fixed itself. They look so good against Tennessee. But is it smoke and mirrors? Is that a one-game thing? Can they bottle that up and keep that going for the whole of the playoffs? I have some doubts about that. And then my heart, obviously, Michigan fan, obviously wants the Ducks to beat Ohio State, just so Ohio State doesn't keep winning and keep going on these playoff runs here. Just kind of looking at it, though, I'm going to side with my brain. I like the Buckeyes to cover the 2.5. My power ratings have this at Ohio State -4. So not much of an edge. It's not one of my best bets or anything, but I do lean the Buckeyes to cover that 2.5.
I'm with you. Now we have one more playoff game, and it's Notre Dame. They were impressive against Indiana at home. Now they have to take on Georgia with the Dogs' backup quarterback down in Louisiana. How did you handicap this one? Georgia is the favorite by 2 points in the Sugar Bowl.
Yeah, this is the one playoff underdog I'm going to take. I got the Irish +2. I think they win this game outright, so might as well just take them to cover the 2 here for the sake. Georgia's defense is absolutely good enough, in my opinion, to just carry the Bulldogs to a win here. But the uncertainty at quarterback, obviously Gunnar Stockton came in for the injured Carson Beck. We've since learned that Carson Beck is going to be out for the year with a UCL injury. Just too much here. Notre Dame's going to get a good look at what Gunnar Stockton was doing at quarterback there in that game against Texas. He played okay, but he kind of still got carried by the rest of the team. And maybe that's what happens here again. I just think Notre Dame is one of the 4 best teams in the country at this point in the season. I think they're going to get it done here. I think they went outright and advanced to the semifinals.
I can see why you say that, and I like Notre Dame and their rushing attack, and their defense looked pretty good at home, beating Indiana the way they did. And Indiana got the onside kick and everything to be able to make that game actually look a little bit closer. But meanwhile, I like Georgia the last game when Stockton came in. I know they're going to have a look at him, but I liked, Beck looked terrible on that game before he got hurt at halftime. And Stockton played the entire second half, and he played a lot better. He can make plays with his legs, and I like that Dogs, the physicality of their defense to be able to stuff that Notre Dame run. That's why I am taking Georgia to move on in this game. So we're differing on a few. And now we get to some ones after they play these college football games. We still have more games. And Thursday, January the 2nd, we have the Gator Bowl. It's Duke and Ole Miss. I like Ole Miss in this game. It's a big number, but Duke's missing some guys, and Ole Miss is one of these. I see Lane Kiffin he's been crying. He's been on Twitter. He thinks he should be in the college football playoff. If he can add points in this game, he's going to do it. And that's why I'm siding with the Ole Miss. They got a pretty good team, and they're ticked off, and they have a coach who does wild things. So I'm going to lay the 14.5, and I'm going to take Ole Miss.
Yeah, I'm with you on this one. Jackson Dart is playing here for Ole Miss. Malik Murphy, the quarterback for Duke, will not play. He's in the quarterback committed to Auburn, so he's on his way out of town. Like you said, I kind of factoring in here that Ole Miss is upset that they didn't make the playoff. I think they've got guys who could be sitting out that are going to go early enough in the draft. They could have opted out. They could have chose not to play, but they have instead decided to play. To me, that shows some motivation. So kind of a motivated Ole Miss squad here, who are probably the much better team anyways. Makes me not too scared to lay the big number, even though it is 14.5. I'll take Ole Miss.
All right, and that gets us to the last day, which is last day we'll be picking games here. They have the college football playoffs here after that, but we don't know, to be determined, so we can't pick those games. But we do have the Battle of Texas in the First Responders Bowl in Gerald J. Ford, not the former Michigan football player or actually the former president as well, down there in Dallas, Texas. But how about Texas State, favored by 14 points in this game? How did you go about trying to pick this one?
Yeah, I was just looking through who's going to be out and stuff to start. 3 starters out for Texas State, 5 out for North Texas. Texas State actually had a surprisingly good year, just kind of going through their schedule. I have them power rated at 56 in the country, which for the conference that they're in is really, really good. I have them above Power 4 teams like UCLA, Cal, even North Carolina. So really good year for them at Texas State there. It is a big number at 14, but with a bunch of guys missing from North Texas that include starting quarterback Chandler Morris. He started his career at Oklahoma, then at TCU, now at North Texas, staying kind of in that same general vicinity there. They've also lost guys who have transferred up, which is, leaving from a non-Power 4 school to a Power 4 school, which is kind of something that's important to look at. Rutgers, Virginia, and Kansas have taken key players from North Texas. So, again, kind of shows just Power 4 teams wanted the players that are going to be not playing here from North Texas. They're going to be missing from a team that's probably not that good to begin with. So that's kind of why I'm laying the big number here with 14 going against North Texas there.
I agree with you, and it's a pretty good quarterback from Texas State. There were some that were looking at him thinking that he could transfer into Michigan. I was looking at Morris he may have still, but for the bulk of the season, he was leading the entire country in in touchdown passes. So he's not going to be there. That's why in this game, I'm looking at that big number and I'm not scared of it. That's why I'll take Texas State as well. And that gets us to finally the Mayo Bowl, the one where you want to win and get a big jar of mayo dumped on you as the head coach. Minnesota favored by 7.5, up and down. I bet against Virginia Tech 3 or 4 times this year and won all of them. I'm going to go back and I hate that hook and everything else in this one, but I'm going to stay with the favorite here in the Big Ten, and I'm going to take Minnesota to cover the 7.5 in the Mayo Bowl.
Yeah, I'm with you on this one as well. I'm going to ride with the Gophers minus the 7.5. There are a couple estimates out there I was looking at that Virginia Tech could be down as many as 14 starters in this game, which is just kind of crazy, even for bowl season. The top 2 quarterbacks for Virginia Tech are in the portal, so potentially down to the third-string quarterback there for the Hokies. And neither of them even look like particularly good. So if your top 2 quarterbacks, so the guy who split time and play all year, and then you have to go to the third-string guy, how good is he going to be? Probably not very good is kind of what I'm betting here. A lot of unknowns for Virginia Tech. Everybody, what they're going to be missing. Just think you know more what you're getting here with Minnesota. I think they're going to be motivated. PJ Fleck always kind of gets them going for the bowl season. He is one of the coaches that does seem to care about winning bowl games. So I'll take them to cover that minus 7.5 there.
I was mistaken, and I did not handicap this game at all. Did you handicap the Bahamas Bowl between Buffalo and Liberty?
I did. I'm going to take Buffalo minus the 2. A lot of guys missing for Liberty here. Sounds like 7 starters potentially out here, including Caden Salters, who's kind of their star quarterback. He's off to Colorado. 3 offensive line starters look to be in the portal as well, including one of them getting looked at by schools like Michigan. So another good, important player there. Not just missing bodies, but good ones. So with the guys missing for Liberty, if their roster was more intact, I would probably lean the other side. But with everyone who they're missing, including their star quarterback, just a lot of question marks there. So I will take Buffalo minus the 2.
You talked me into it. I didn't look at this game at all. I overlooked it, but here it is. Listening to you, I will take Buffalo in the Bahamas Bowl. All right. Did I miss any other games, or is that it?
Yeah, there was one more. We didn't cover the Louisville and Washington.
Oh, I don't know how I missed that one. Is that on the board?
Yeah, you scroll right past it.
Oh, did I? Okay. Well, all right. Let's have you go through that one.
Yeah, my pick for that one was didn't really love the spread, to be honest with you. I really liked the over 49.5 here. It is one of my better bets of bowl season. It's my first over-under, really my only over-under. I was kind of interested in just looking through these games. Jed Fish and Jeff Brom, 2 offensive guys who I think have good offensive minds. There's a lot of guys missing. Tyler Shuck out at quarterback for Louisville. Ja'Cory Brooks is their best receiver there at Louisville. He's not playing either. Isaac Brown, though, is the star freshman running back, kind of took over that offense partway through the year and really finished strong down the stretch. Had a big game against Clemson later on in the season. Washington, also in their last regular season game, they made the move to a little bit more of a mobile guy, quarterback, Demond Williams. He played sparingly against Michigan and a couple other teams as well as kind of the Wildcat. Running quarterback guy. Both teams going to be missing a bunch of good defenders here as well. So with a bunch of good defensive players in the portal for both teams and opt-outs on defense, both sides, I'm going to go over 49.5 here, Louisville, Washington.
I can see why you're going over. I did handicap this game. I looked at Washington, and I'm going to take the Huskies in this one to cover the 2.5. And you're right, a bunch of guys out, but we got a good look at Washington with Michigan playing them, and I like a lot of what I saw there. And this is the Sun Bowl. I don't know how I skipped past it, but I did. So that will do it. All right. Okay, great job. This will say Happy New Year before we get to those last college football games where we'll talk again and look at what will be the Final Four at that point.
Yeah, hopefully we do better in Bowl Picks Part 2 than we did in Part 1.
I'm with you on that. Good luck to everyone. Thanks for watching Sharpening the Edge. Give us that thumbs up on the pod and any comments that you may have. And everybody,